I'm Sari Cooper, a certified sex therapist and sex coach in New York City. I'll be your host to Sex Esteem, a new show where we will explore in all its expressions relationships and sex in the modern world. Tune in for fun-filled facts and entertaining tips to having a more pleasurable sex life. So welcome to another episode in the series Countdown to Valentine's Day 2021. And I'm so excited. It took a little while, but we finally got to coordinate. Emily Sauer, am I pronouncing it right?
Sauer. Yeah, you just go for it. People are always embarrassed. I like to create things that make people slightly uncomfortable. It starts generally with my last name. So it's just Emily Sauer.
It's Emily Sauer who created Ohnut, and we've known each other now for a while. I would say a couple of years, actually, since you were in the first stages of creating your amazing Ohnut, which I have here.
We have magic boxes.
There we go.
Amazing.
And so, you know, my interest in having you on, obviously, is because as we're going into Valentine's Day, people have all sorts of preconceptions of what it should look like.
Oh, yeah.
And from rom-coms to porn to whatever your sort of, material is that you digest or you grew up on, people have sort of visuals of what good sex or normal sex, right? I put quotations, normal sex is. And so one of the things that we always deal with as sex therapists is women who come to us with complaints of sexual pain, including a lot of young women, right? So just tell me how you started this company, what prompted it, and let's start from there.
Well, just a real quick thing to note. So painful sex is so common. 75% of women will have painful sex in their lifetime. And that's just women who've reported it. And I say women because that the research is based on female-bodied individuals. But I actually had a little tiff with my partner last night. It always upsets me when we have these arguments, but it's really wonderful. It's almost analogous. Like conflict is inevitable in a relationship, almost in the same exact way that sex will be painful at some point, and when it happens, we can either ignore it or we can look at it and address it and do something about it. And oftentimes, kind of to your point about Valentine's Day, we're given this elusive best sex ever concept that everyone is trying to strive for. Meanwhile, you get somewhere and it's somewhere else, then you get that someplace else. But I'm supposed to, and so when it comes to painful sex, do we do something about it or do we do nothing about it? And when we do something about it, that's when the magic actually happens. When you have conflict and you can talk through it and work through it and learn more about yourself and have your partner learn more about themselves, and that's when the magic happens. So Valentine's Day isn't about anything being perfect. It's about it being imperfect. Wow. So I didn't answer your question at all.
No, but I think it's a good intro, right? Because sex isn't perfect. There isn't anything realistic about what's normal. There are averages, certainly in sexuality research. We, I always say to people, there's a bell curve, and the majority of people are in the average range. But I think a lot of people come into sex therapy, asking me, is this normal? Right. And I think for women who are experiencing sexual pain with penetration, for them, they feel so broken and that there's something wrong with them and they're not getting the answers they need. And, so tell us like what, usually, our own experience, it starts us down a path, right, of creativity.
Necessity is the mother of invention. So yes, full disclosure, I had deep pain during sex. So that's known as deep dyspronia for my entire sexual existence. And I never mentioned it to any partner that I was with. the only time of year that I did mention it was when I went to my doctor, because that's who we are meant to trust in this crazy wild west of pelvic health. And it just so happens that most doctors are ill-equipped or ill-trained or don't have the time to actually attend to those concerns. So I was literally rushed out the door every time I would bring up a conversation that they didn't have time to address. So what
That's
do you
very
do?
common, by the way.
Very, very common. Well, I mean, and meanwhile, I did not know that. So I proceeded not to talk about it. Sex proceeded to be painful. And where do things go at that point? Like further down the shithole. Sorry, my language. But so I went online and I found that there were zero products. Adult sex toys don't acknowledge that unwanted pain even exists.
Mm-hmm.
And then you look at medical aids and they are just from the they're like, that cream colored plastic that just gets yellower over time. You're like, I don't want anything made out of that plastic from decades past near my body. So I finally got to a place in my life where I was really stressed out. And every time that sex was painful, I was deeply disappointed in myself. I was disappointed in myself as a partner, as a person, as the person who I thought I was.
Mm.
And so I thought if I could just control how deep penetration went, then maybe I wouldn't feel so awful about myself.
Mm-hmm.
And therein lies the birthplace of the penis. A donut on a penis was the original concept. Hence the name.
So I think in addition to women feeling broken or embarrassed or maybe ashamed or just feeling like incompetent at doing this thing, in addition to that, they're actually being robbed of pleasure.
Yeah. Yeah. Which is
Potential
interesting.
pleasure.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Well, it's interesting you say that. And it's so funny because I feel like as a sex therapist, there's a lot of language around pleasure. And from the place that I sit as someone who's deeply, who's felt so much pressure to feel pleasure. It's like telling someone to go run a marathon in a week. You're like, well, I haven't run for a really long time. How am I supposed to run a marathon? It's like when there's this expectation of physical pleasure, because that's generally culturally what pleasure means, is physical pleasure and orgasm. When someone puts that as on my list of things to do, I bump it down. I am not even gonna touch that. So while in fact it does make the pleasure less accessible, I think it almost deserves a reframe towards enjoyment. It makes enjoyment less accessible. We become less, but when we reframe it as enjoyment instead of as pleasure, then it doesn't seem as hard to do. There's a lot around language with Ohnut that has really shaped who we are as a brand, and we don't use the word pleasure, actually.
It's interesting because there's a lot of work that we do in our field around languaging.
Of course.
Including bringing in the word outer course.
Love that.
Yeah, right? To kind of balance this thing of that it's not pre-play, foreplay. It's actually all play.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of neutral.
Yeah.
And
just making
everyone's entitled to have some play. Yeah.
Like, when was the last time you made out really slowly? Or just took the time to notice the curves on your partner's face when you were this close away from them? I think when it comes to painful sex, people view sex in particular as this very on-off switch. Like if a partner makes any gesture of intimacy towards me, for example, I might feel pressure to have sex all of a sudden, and then I reject any intimacy whatsoever. But then when that starts to happen, we lose hand holding, we lose cuddling, we lose those really beautiful moments that say, I love you or I care about you.
Right.
And so what we hope to do with Ohnut is just kind of open back up that possibility for everything kind of in between.
Yeah. Well, full body sensuality and eroticism of the mind is something that gets maybe relegated when people are in a rush. Now, I have to, put us in context, right? Because we're still in COVID. It's been a long haul. It's been really tough on people living alone.
Yeah.
but it's also been tough on people with partners.
Yeah.
So why don't you first of all, like, let's talk about Ohnut. Let's bring it out because
That's a
people
good
don't
one.
realize necessarily what this is.
Yes. Okay. So imagine my finger is a penetrating partner. So that could be a penis, a toy, a dilator, a dildo, you name it. This is what we're working with. And Ohnut is worn at the base of the penetrating partner. And basically during penetration, it compresses down so that you can control how much goes in, essentially. But the beauty of it, right, is that it comes apart.
Right.
So you stack them.
Yeah.
So that really what you can do as partners, you can incrementally adjust. You can open up a whole new dialogue. Like, should we take a ring off? Let's add one on. Let's try this position. How about that one?
Right.
And start asking questions like, how does this feel? Is this okay? They become checkpoints with these little incremental changes
Right.
that really create a layer of trust that might have been not have been there before. And then this added layer of just almost like an adventure with the oh gosh, I'm at a loss for words right now. Sometimes when you say a sentence and your brain splits into two and you can't.
Well, the thing I like about it, first of all, is the way it feels. It's kind of gushy.
It's so stretchy.
It's very stretchy. So it fits all sizes. And it's kind of soft. Yeah, right? New jewelry item.
You can, you can
Right.
put it on lots of things.
Right. And one of the things we actually tell women who come in with pain is that we say, first of all, can we take penetrative sex off the table until we get a sense of, get yourself to a sexual health medical provider who can really diagnose you, who's experienced. And then maybe if she decides that, what you need is pelvic floor physical therapy, to do that work, right?
Mm-hmm.
But in order to do that, you have to talk to your partner. So many people come in and go, it's my problem, my body, my problem. I don't want to involve him or her, as the case may be. Or them. And so I always say, you know what? This is the way you're going to get through this is through team effort and this.
Well, what's fun?
To your point, you have to actually communicate with your partner.
You do. Well, what's fun too is that a lot of solution options like pelvic PT, like dilator use, like any kind of suppository, you name it, is for the receiving partner by the receiving partner. It's just kind of for that person by themselves. Whereas Ohnut really does open up that dialogue between partners in a way that actually causes a physiological response. So oftentimes we think, oh, like talking is overrated. Or maybe, obviously you don't feel that way.
Don't say.
But a very simple, vulnerable conversation around like, let's give this thing a try. Like, this thing exists because so many people need it. Maybe there are other people out there who might be able to benefit from it. It really does take off a lot of the pressure and shame that we kind of hold so tightly to.
So first, can you tell us what it's made of? Because
what
we put in near our bodies is important.
Yeah, so it's a blend. It's a polymer blend so that you can use either silicone-based or water-based lube with it. It was very important that Ohnut fit into people's sexual lives, no matter what kind of lube they use. And oftentimes when you see a doctor, they might tell you to use silicone lube because it lasts a little bit longer. So it's compatible with both, which is very exciting.
Oh, good.
It is very stretchy. The question that we get the most often is actually, how does it feel for a partner? Because the concern is, well, I'm potentially burdening my partner. I'm asking them for a favor. This is an inconvenience. When in fact, actually, it feels almost like it's not even there because it warms up and you get that like hip to hip sensation without having to worry how you're doing. It's so much of painful sex during the moment is our brain being preoccupied with how we're doing. Is this okay? Like, is my partner okay? Am I okay? Like, what is my face doing? When you have a product like Ohnut where you can, again, develop that sense of trust in your own body and for your partner to develop a sense of trust in theirs, then you can just feel.
Right. I'm wondering if you've gotten feedback about whether it's also helpful for men with penises in terms of being able to, enhance or at least just support their erections, because it is cozy.
Yeah,
And you put it at the base.
there are so many facts. Also, because we did just launch a wider set, because some people want a looser fit. Some people want a slightly more snug fit. Some people want a looser fit. It really is, and also depending on the size of the ego, things fit differently regardless of size. So, yeah, so we have heard, so men or people with penises like to use it in different ways. You can actually use it as for masturbation. You can, yeah, use the rings in lots of different ways. We had someone wear them one time as a ball stretcher, if that's what you're into, And you can also use it for oral sex and manual sex as well. Because you have to use lubrication with it. So imagine you've got lube on and then you've got this going on. And it's like, well, you might as well lift it up and put it back down, lift it up, put it back down.
All right.
There's no wrong way to use an Ohnut. Let's just
Okay. Sort of like a modular fleshlight in some ways.
I'd like to think we're slightly more elevated and socially caring.
Yeah. Yeah. But so tell me what you've been hearing from your customers this past year during COVID.
We often get testimonials that say, "Thank you for not making me feel like a failure."
Mm.
Or I never wanted to cause my wife pain, and now I know I'm not. We have people who, we actually just got a testimonial in recently that said, we found out about Ohnut a year ago and just tried it out last night, and oh my God, how much did I wish that we bought it sooner. People oftentimes wait until something is broken in order to fix it, and not the body being broken, but a relationship being broken, or COVID causing serious cortisol increases and just degrees of stress. And so we've seen significant, when those things happen, people are more likely to take initiative with their health.
Yeah. Right.
And so we did see an increase in sales this year. And hopefully it's been encouraging more communication and intimacy between people who felt alone.
Right.
Detached.
Right. Well, I think it gives women agency, right, to speak up, say, I need to work on this. This is something I need. We exactly. What I was going to say is I need to work on this with you. It's got to be a team effort. So we always ask people who call us to come in individually. We'll say, would your partner be willing to come in? Because we find that that's, and the research shows that, having a partner who's willing to persist in the progress and the treatment, women do better and their anxiety levels go down.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, it's anxious, or your anxiety, anticipating pain already causes the body to constrict, which only, makes this condition worse. So there's a lot of mindfulness and there's a lot of importance around having a team, effort.
Yeah. Yeah. And having a community too. Again, during such a time of isolation, when people find Ohnut and they read the reviews, it's just like, oh my gosh, there are so many people out there who can identify, who can relate, maybe who are exactly like me, or like my, or who have a supportive partner. And you're like, oh my gosh, maybe I should start a dialogue that way. Like it's so wonderful to see. I mean, kind of like what you were saying, people feel a sense of almost like camaraderie, I want to say. Whereas previously there was a deep sense of isolation and like independent struggle. Yeah. So yeah, go for it.
I was going to say, we also have to mention that I think that there are women who, because of their upbringings and the cultural expectations in their communities, people who are in very religious communities, or who really lack education because they've been brought up in very strict parochial communities. Those are the folks, the women who really need, to hear about this, because sometimes there are all these sort of intergenerational myths that get handed down. Well, it's supposed to hurt. It's supposed to hurt. Don't worry, you'll get used to it. I mean, I've had clients like that from different like Indian communities or people, Muslim communities who waited until marriage before they had penetrative sex. And they really don't have any knowledge base to go from.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and what's interesting with that also is that where in cultures where sex and sexuality is taboo, uh, the option, what toolkit is there to baby step in the right direction when it comes to products? Oftentimes it's just like, here are all the sex toys that go in all the crazy places and do all like the vibrating, bells and whistle things. And that's not what a lot of people are ready for when they're, when with certain conservative values or even just sense of self, people don't, there's a reason why, well, no, I don't say that. Anyways, Ohnut is, I think, making the impact that it is because people are open to trying something that is like a little less scary. It is simple. It's not motorized. It doesn't have many parts. It's just a squishy, stretchy ring that has a lot of messaging that's friendly. And, I created all the messaging that I would have wanted to hear when I needed to hear it the most. So when I felt deeply alone, when I felt like an absolute failure, what would I have wanted to hear from a best friend? And we try to frame a lot of the messaging that way so that people who are maybe taking smaller steps in the right direction can feel good about being in that direction at all. So, I mean, I'd love to read you. There's a card that goes in the box, and I would love to read it.
Sure.
Just to kind of shed light on the message that I think everyone could benefit from hearing. Okay. It says, "You made it. A big congratulations, not only on your new Ohnut, but also on all the hard work that led you here. The journey is never easy. I tell you with my full heart, you are sexy exactly the way you are. You're a problem solver, a shoulder to lean on, a spreader of joy. You put a lot of love out there, and you deserve to live that love you share. So in the spirit of curiosity, embrace adjustment, awkward moments, and small mighty victories. And know deep down, but not too deep, that you're doing great. Now go play. All my love, Emily."
Perfect. Just perfect. Because, my model of sex esteem is really about getting the knowledge you need and learning how to communicate to others. But before you can do that, you really have to have a sense of compassion for yourself, which a lot of people don't grow up with around sexuality and eroticism.
Yeah, it's so interesting too, because how, we so often hear like you need to be compassionate with yourself, be more compassionate, be kinder. It's like, well, how do you actually do that? Like, what does that even mean?
Exactly what you wrote on that card and read on that card. It's
Yeah.
being able to talk to parts of yourself that might be hypercritical, that might feel very ashamed, as a best friend would talk to you.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of, that's not kind of, that's part of and parcel the work of sex esteem, is getting people to that place where they can have those internal conversations with themselves and
Yeah.
maybe with friends, which is why, having a community is so important.
Yeah.
So,
Oh, real
so
fast.
tell me what a perfect V day is for you.
Oh my goodness. Okay, hold on, real fast. I feel like this is such a juicy conversation. One technique also that I was just reading about recently is writing what would you say to your past self,
Yeah.
kind of thing, or at times when you're upset, what would you say to yourself to make yourself feel better? And and like write yourself a letter
That's right.
to make yourself feel better. It's actually kind of interesting just to put pen to paper and actually write those things down because we know we need them.
Mm-hmm.
But I think coming from ourselves, it even means a little bit more.
Well, that's why I'm saying, compassion is not this abstract thing. It's actually something, an action that you have to take.
Action. Exactly. Yeah.
Right? It's not this like airy fairy idea. It's actually action that you actually say to yourself, take your younger self, put them next to you and start, being a friend to that person.
Yeah, totally. I think that's wonderful. That's
Yeah.
wonderful. So my perfect Valentine's Day.
Yeah.
I think, man, a perfect Valentine's Day would probably be like just throwing on some tunes in the kitchen and like cooking and dancing. Part of me wants just like a bath with a bath bomb and a disco ball with the lights off and music.
Like that combo.
I want like a disco bath with my partner. And it might get splashy or whatever, and it's just not sexy at all, but it's fun.
It's fun.
Basically, I think what I'm saying is I want fun.
Yeah.
I don't care if it's sexy. I don't care if it's romantic. I just want to know. I just want to have a good time.
Yeah. Good. All right. I like that. Well, happy Valentine's Day.
Yes, too.
Yeah. And it's great to see you.
Great to see you too. And if anyone has any questions, shoot an email. You can just Google Ohnut. We've got a form on our site. If you want to say hello, we're on Instagram, you name it.
Right. So tell people how you spell it. I don't have the box here.
N-U-T. You can also look up all these other terms like penis bumper or like, just anything weird that you can think of that you want to look up. Hopefully it points you back to Ohnut and Google. Okay. We're doing our job.
All right. And remember to like us at Sari Cooper's Sex Esteem, as well as at Ohnut. And happy Valentine's Day.
Happy Valentine's Day. Thank you, Sari.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.